Hello, fifth grade. We're going to get started on our history lesson for today. We are finishing 14.2 and continue on to 14.3. We have some information about Greece I'm going to tell you about. We have some information about some locations in Western Europe. And then we also have France I'm going to tell you about, okay? So I know this looks like a lot of information, but let's break it down. And after you read through your lesson and you see this, you're going to see that you probably got some of these notes already. And if not, also click on Quizlet and all of these notes are on there to help you out, okay? So one, I just want to tell you about a couple of things about Greece, okay? Now, Greece is in the southern Balkan Peninsula, and it actually makes up a large portion of the Balkan Peninsula and 2,000 islands, which is really crazy. The largest Greek island is Crete. Greece, it has the capital city of Athens, and we learned all about Athens and Sparta, remember? Because back in the European settlement, after leaving Babel, that's when all the Europeans started settling over in Greece, when they started fleeing from Babel after the Tower of Babel. And so that is why we have some of the earliest civilizations going on in Europe, or from Europe in Greece. And they are actually the ones who developed the independent city-states like we learned about Sparta and Athens. So Greece ends up having had a Greek language and a high culture that, remember, ended up influencing the Roman Empire because at some point Greece was ran by the Romans. And so modern Greece is now a democratic republic government. And still has some great influence throughout the world, and we did learn about that a little while ago. So main thing I want you to know about Greece, most important, is definitely the capital city of Athens, okay? So now let's go over to France, and France is, I'm going to see, like, here, let me like scoot this a little bit closer for you. Let's see if that helps. Okay, there we go. So France is the largest country in Central Europe, okay? And there is a lot of countries in the Central Europe area, but it is the largest. The capital city is Paris, and three of the most famous landmarks that people travel to from all over the world to visit in France still today is the Eiffel Tower, the Notre Dame Cathedral, and the Louvre, which is a big, huge museum there in France, okay? Now, if you take a look, I know this has my arrow up here, so let's skip that top one for a minute. But let me tell you a little bit about some famous people from France, okay? One, we have John Calvin, and we've already learned about him and how he was the Frenchman that taught the people about the Bible during the Protestant Reformation, okay? Now, he ended up having a group of Huguenots, and they were Huguenots. Oh my gosh, I just remembered. Huguenots. Alexa, pronounce Huguenots.
I pronounced that Huguenots.
Huguenots, I was right. Okay, so that. Okay.
And I might not have it right.
Thank you, Alexa. Okay. Huguenots was the group of people that followed John Calvin, and what ended up happening is many of them actually were massacred. There was actually 100,000 that were massacred, and then they ended up fleeing out of the country into different European countries, and a lot fled into Canada. Okay, now when it comes to this time frame, this was during the Protestant Reformation time frame, and we also have some really important people during that time, which was Louis Pasteur. And he was a scientist who taught us about protecting our bodies from germs. So that's why we wash our hands all the time and use hand sanitizer, because he introduced us to germs. Thank you, Louis Pasteur. Okay, then we have the Joan of Arc. Now, during this time frame, we ended up getting into right before the French Revolution, which was also in part right before the in a part called the Enlightenment ages. But what happened is this was where John Calvin was more in the Enlightenment ages, where he was teaching about the Bible. But then what ended up happening is this was also the time where France was fighting with England, and Joan of Arc was a peasant girl who helped France, led them to victory over England, but she was actually caught and burned at the stake, and she was a young girl when this happened. So that is Joan of Arc. During the French Revolution, that is when the people started to stand up against the government, and they ended up having the French Revolution War, and that is when Queen Antoinette was beheaded during that time. That's what she's most famous for, was being a queen, but then being beheaded during that time. Okay, and then let me kind of go this down a little bit. This one was General Charles de Gaulle, or Ganel. Alexa, pronounce Gauelle.
I pronounce that Gel.
Gal,
I'm always
okay.
working on how I say things, and I might not have it right.
Now, during this time, this was again during the French Revolution, he actually, or this was after the French Revolution, I'm sorry, he actually helped become and was a hero in World War II, and he became the 5th president. Now, these are some important, famous people during the time of France's, over time period. And the reason why we learn about him is because of this wonderful dictator called Neapolitan Bonaparte, and he decided he was going to be a dictator and just crown himself emperor during the French Revolution. So that's why it was so important to see that change happened with General Charles de Gaulle, because we had people who were just going ahead and crowning themselves emperors at the time during the French Revolution, when people were fighting back against the government. So this is a few people that I want you guys to know about, and so I'm going to back that up again a bit, just so you have that, okay? And there's some also important things going on in Europe, some locations I want you to know about. One, I want you to know about the Rhine River, which was Europe's most important waterway. Okay, we also have the Alps. The Alps goes very far through Europe, and it is the largest mountain system in Europe. You have heard that before. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to blank. Gosh, my brain is not working today. Alexa, pronounce Alexa, pronounce Pyrenees. Pyrenees?
I can't do that.
Okay.
But for other ideas,
I believe it's
Alexa
end.
Play.
She's crazy. Okay. Anyway, Pyrenees, and that is the mountains that separates the Iberian Peninsula from Europe. Okay. And included in the Alps is in France, there is Mount Blanc, and we've learned this, that Mount Blanc is the highest mountain in the Alps. So note those things as well. And here is just some other note that I want you to know about. I know, AJ, think back to when we talked about free college, right? We went through that big old whole thing about that. Well, I want to tell you, remember we've learned about the different governments and the different systems and things. I wanted to tell you about socialist. Okay, so a socialist is a person who believes, let me read this straight, a person who believes that a country's businesses and industries should be taken over and away from the individual owners, so should be taken away from the individual owners and put back in control and under the control of the government. So basically, remember how we talked about, and I think we've talked about this in class before, where if you own a business, they think, hey, no, you shouldn't run your own business and make all the money. We're going to take that away from you as a government, or the government should take it away from you. And then we're going to go ahead and let the government run it. And then they're going to go ahead and disperse the money however they see fit. And the government gets wealthy on somebody else's business. Not very cool, right? So if you came up with something like Apple, you wouldn't want the government coming in and taking Apple away from you, right? So, because that's not very fair. You're the one that designed it, and that's how you make money. But that's what a socialist believes that the government should run everything, and that individuals should not be able to profit off of their own businesses, and they shouldn't be able to own their businesses. So interesting situation there, right? Okay, so I know I gave you guys a lot of information, but we have Greece, we have France, we have some things about Europe. And you're going to want to take a minute and pause this. But remember, these are also listed on Quizlet to help you out if you want to look at them there. But go ahead and take a pause and go ahead and get these notes down if you don't already have them from your book. Okay? And that was your section for today.